This RealAg Radio podcast is brought to you by new Intruvix 2 herbicide from FMC. New Intruvix 2 herbicide is an all-in-one formulation that gives you the best of both worlds, fast-burning activity and long-lasting systemic action for more consistent broadleaf control pre-seed to cereals. See your local retailer today.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Monday edition of the show. Thanks so much for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. Also, a big shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. Hope you had yourself a great weekend and you're able to take care of all the things you need to take care of. It's warming up a little bit, which is very, very nice. We went from the frigid Arctic parts of the last couple weeks, and things are looking a little bit more mild this week, which I'm sure many of you will very much take over the latter, or the former, I guess. Today on the show, it's Agronomic Monday. Looking forward to it. We got a great lineup. We got Dr. Doug Bauman. He is with Vive Crop Protection. He's going to talk about herbicide formulations and how just how critical they are when it comes to the efficacy. We're also going to hear from Dr. Dave Hooker with University of Guelph-Ridgetown campus on crop rotations, some of the research they've been doing there. We've also got Leon Pratchler. He is CEO of HumaTerra, a biological company based out of Birch Hill, Saskatchewan. Going to talk about the role that biologicals could play when it comes to improving soil health. And then we've got a new episode of the Farm Safety Roundup, and I'll be joined today by Kristin Hoffman. And we're going to talk about the importance of mental health and what are some of the things that you can work on there. Hey, this is the off season besides the livestock sector, of course, but important discussion as we lead into for cropping farmers, the really stressful time of the year. We'll also have some time today for the top ag news stories of the day. If you have any feedback on today's show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or you can find us across all the different social media platforms, or you are very welcome to call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Looking forward to traveling this week to Winnipeg, Manitoba for the Keystone Ag Producers meeting. We'll be at the CAP AGM this week. Looking forward to that. We're going to do a live broadcast of the show that'll be played here on Wednesday. And I'm going to see all of our friends and audience in Manitoba. Looking forward to it. Tomorrow, we're going to be with the Northern Pulse Growers. They're having their annual general meeting. We'll be doing a show from there as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So busy week here on RealAg Radio. It just basically continues like that from now until about the end of March. It's Where's Shaun? Anywhere, everywhere. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to get started with Agronomic Monday. We've got Dr. Dave Hooker standing by. You're listening to RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147.
It is time for today's product spotlight. So joining me, your host, Lindsay Smith, is Paul Sinkovich. He's with Vantage Ag. Vantage Ag markets themselves as the foliar experts. So let us know why.
Well, Lindsay, our new sub-nano liquid fertilizer products are specifically designed to be applied in a foliar application. They're really easy to use. You mix them with your pesticides. You can apply quickly and efficiently through your sprayer. It really couldn't be any easier. We totally bypass the soil ecosystem, which eliminates many of the factors that can influence fertilizer efficiency. And so this new technology, we feel, is changing how growers actually think about their fertility strategies with an unheard of efficiency and ROI. It just makes sense.
All right, and for those who want more information about Vantage Ag, where can they go?
They can go to vantage.ag. They can also call us at Vantage Ag at 778-919-3370.
There's power, and then there's superpower. Advancing the unstoppable superpower of pre-seed from New Farm. Take control. Eliminate weed competition and start clean in spring. Manage weeds early in canola, cereals, and pulses. Conquer, Goldwing, Thunderhawk, and Blackhawk EVO. Convenient formulations and multiple modes of action. Add more power to glyphosate, more benefits to your burn down. Go to newfarm.ca/burndown.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Agronomic Monday. Time is running out to register for the 2024 Crop Connect Conference. Join us February 14th and the 15th at the Victoria Inn and Convention Center in Winnipeg for insightful speakers, crop-specific information, networking, and more. Register today at cropconnectconference.ca. Well, at the Ontario Ag Conference, going back a couple weeks ago, Bern Tobin of RealAgriculture had a chance to catch up with Dr. Doug Bauman of Vive Crop Protection to talk about the importance of formulations in our crop chemistry and the role that it plays in terms of the effectiveness. Here's Bern and Dr. Bauman.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin. Welcome to Real Agriculture. Today I'm down at the Ontario Agricultural Conference, and we're going to talk formulation. Herbicides, fungicides, and who better to talk to than Dr. Doug Bauman from Vive Crop Protection. Sir, how's it going?
Great, Bern. Thanks for the invite.
Hey, tell us a little bit about Vive.
I mean, quite frankly, Vive is Canada's best-kept secret in the crop protection industry. We've been around for 17 years, headquartered in Mississauga, but just started selling our products in Canada in 2023, based on PMRA-registered nanotechnology.
Yeah. Hey, tell us about formulations here. I mean, like, do they matter? When do they matter? What do you tell people when they ask that question?
Well, quite frankly, there are active ingredients out there that wouldn't be a product if not for the formulation they are in. The actives would sit on the leaf, sit on the pest until they biodegraded without ever giving you the control you paid for. It's really the formulation that opens the doorway that gets the active into the plant where it can do its job. And that's really the bare minimum. The when they matter is when you think about what extra features you want beyond just plain efficacy. So a great one would be fertilizer compatibility. If you want fertilizer compatibility with a product, that's normally an extra feature that's going to be built in, and it's driven by the formulation.
Awesome. Let's talk about some of the, the formulations you talked about here today and how we can reformulate, product for benefits. And the first one you talked about was, formulating for performance and crop safety. And that's an interesting when you look at two products like Liberty and glufosinate.
Right. Yeah, so a product like Liberty is glufosinate ammonium, and there's also glufosinate ammoniums on the market made by other companies. What makes Liberty special, and specifically on lamb's quarters, is that the original developer of Liberty has figured out how to give you efficacy on lamb's quarters without heating up the herbicide on soy. And if you want to heat up the product on everything, like a non-selective herbicide, that's not so hard, but giving an extra boost on lamb's quarters control and remaining crop safe, that's the power of a formulation.
Awesome. Another formulation is, managing environmental impact. And a product like dicamba's been around a long time. We talked about that today in the presentation. But it's been reformulated and has a new purpose and a new life.
Well, you couldn't have said it better. Dicamba's older than you and me combined, right? I mean, we saw today it was first synthesized in the 1940s. And over that time, from about the 1960s when it became the first use in agriculture, all the way to now, that dicamba acid has had about 5 different dance partners, 5 different counterions, and those counterions come from the formulation, and they make dicamba a completely different and improved version of itself.
Right. So anyway, that's an example of how you can work with one product. You can also build broadest control with a formulation that brings many products together.
Right. So when I think about herbicides and broad control, I mean, the spectrum I want out of a herbicide is huge. And when I think about modern active ingredients, their individual spectrum is normally starting to get more narrow, partially due to environmental regulations. So the way you build a great product is you stack multiple different herbicides together in the same product, multiple modes of effective action, which we've heard about before. And so by building a product with 4 or 5 different AIs in it, you're getting way more bang for the buck and that single pass convenience without the risk of a tank mix going south on you. And that again is the power of a formulation.
And you can also include fertilizer into that formulation, right? Bringing products together on that list.
Well, and we gave 2 examples today about fertilizer. One was Acuron with fertilizer, for example, 28%, and that product works well in that carrier mix. But then there are cases where the fertilizer you're applying, say an in-furrow fertilizer, is a really heavy fertilizer. So 1030-40 and others with a lot of micronutrients, those fertilizers can be so heavy that the only way a traditional crop protection formulation can be mixed, you have to dilute the water. You have to dilute that fertilizer with water, and then your planting productivity goes down. Enter Vive with our line of fertilizer compatible products, Now there isn't a fertilizer I'm aware of that we cannot mix a Vive product with directly without any additional water. The example I showed today was about 8 different fertilizers with our Asteroid FC product mixed, and that's stable for days and days.
Okay, final question for you, and that is how farmers should think about formulations, the questions they need to ask. And what do you say? Is it you look at all the formulations? You've got different products stacked up, different brands and different features. What do you need to ask yourself as a farmer? The feature that you need, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. If I have the spectrum that I want, be that disease or weed control, there's a price I'm willing to pay for that. But then when I go higher and higher in price, maybe it's a company that I know or it's a new entrant to the market, my question to you is, what do you get for that price? And do you need that all the time? Now, I have in my basement 5 different types of white paint with 5 different price points. Why? They're all white paint, but they do different things, and I use the right one for the right job. Yeah. So when I want fertilizer compatibility, I'll be buying a product built specifically for that.
Yeah, and you can look at that. You can take that sort of same approach to a whole line of products at your ag retailer.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Make sure you get what you pay for and know what you've asked for.
Awesome. Doug, great chat. Formulation, sir. Thank you for stopping by. Always great to have you on Real Agriculture.
Thank you, Bryn. Good to see you again.
If you want to watch the video with Doug, that is posted at RealAgriculture.com, along with all of our coverage of the Ontario Ag Conference. Up next, we're going to stick with Bern, and he also visited the University of Guelph-Ridgetown campus and talked to Dr. Dave Hooker about some of the research that they have been working on in regards to crop rotations. Now, even though some of the research here we're talking about corn, beans, and wheat, this discussion definitely applies to cropping regions no matter where you are farming and the importance of crop rotations. Here's Bern and Dr. Hooker.
Today, I'm at the University of Guelph-Ridgetown campus with Dr. Dave Hooker from the University of Guelph. Dave, how's it going?
Yeah, going great.
Awesome. Hey, now Diagnostic Day's here today, and you're doing a tour of the long-term rotational trials here at the campus. And this story is really about diversity and the importance of diversity in the rotation. Tell us about the impact it can make.
Yeah, diversity is important. Diversity is important. We have to look at crop diversity. We talk about diversity all the time in crop rotations. We talk about diversity and cover crop mixes. Like, that's a very common topic. But I think we need to pull back a little bit from the importance of diversity and focus more on the functional aspects that one species may have on maybe on a community or on the rest of the crops in a rotation, say.
Now, speaking of that, you are sort of now a member of a new group of scientists like yourself that are really trying to understand that diversity and really, maybe unleash it to a new level.
Yeah, that's right. So this group was initiated in the U.S., I think from USDA, but there are very few long-term trials across North America, but each one of them has incredible value. And we thought, or this group thought, that it would be even more valuable if we can pool the data from all of these long-term trials together. Then we can notice trends like weather effects, different environment effects. And this group is called DRIVES. And it was started by a PhD in, I think, in Cornell University. Her name is Ann Bybee Finlay. And she started this group along with other USDA researchers and university researchers in the U.S. And they asked us, they said, hey, would you like to be part of our group? And so this Ridgetown trial is part of that group, and the Allura rotation trial just north of Guelph, it is also part of this group. So we're sharing our data, we're sharing our results in addition to these other trials.
Now, Dave, we've talked a lot about diversity. We know it's important. I guess the challenge for you scientists is why? How does it work? And how do you leverage diversity in other systems and throughout cropping systems?
Yeah, so this group with DRIVES, it is mainly focused on diversity, but of course there's an interest in the group. What is really driving the crop responses or mixture responses, let's say in a crop mixture? What is so special about some of these species that are driving the change or why some crops are performing better in a mixture or with higher diversity. So I think we have to detract a little bit from the diversity name and just the word itself and focus a little bit more on the functional aspects that one crop has over another.
A crop like wheat, for example, one of your favorites, has some incredible impacts on following crops, and learning more about that is key.
Yeah, exactly. So wheat has special characteristics. We've seen this at the Ridgetown trial here, almost the exact same results at the Elora rotation trial, different environment, different systems there, but we're seeing the same results there, the impact that wheat has. And we know that soybeans, for instance, they do not do as well in a corn-soybean rotation as they do in a soybean-wheat rotation, right? Same diversity there. We have 2 crops in each of that corn-soybean or soybean-wheat rotation, but the soybeans do better in that soybean-wheat rotation. And we can say the same thing, wheat improves corn as well in a corn-soybean-wheat rotation. And so it just really underlines the value. There's something special and functional that wheat is providing that makes other crops in the rotation better.
Now, Dave, you say wheat is special when it comes to the rotation. What are some of those aspects?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a question that I'm highly interested in. What is so special about the wheat? What is it providing to the system to make corn and soybeans that much better? And I think it's to do with the building of organic matter that wheat or small grain cereals provide. Small grain cereals and wheat, of course, has a fibrous root system, and we know that wheat or small grain cereals convert a lot of the photosynthate that is manufactured. It goes to feed microorganisms in the soil. So up to 40% of the photosynthate doesn't go to make plant parts. It goes simply as exudates to feed the microbial activity in the soil. So that's relatively new research. And then another piece of new research is that we know now that about 50% of the soil organic matter is probably made or manufactured from the turnover of the microbial biomass. So I think those two go hand in hand, and I think that's the key to wheat, and that's what we need to investigate further.
Final question for you. Your new group, Drives, what are we going to see from you folks down the road?
The DRIVE stands for Diverse Rotations Improve Valuable Ecosystems Services.
Oh, I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, that's quite a mouthful, and it took me a little bit to memorize that. I still stumble over it. But this group is really looking into those functional aspects and looking at how the crops vary with weather. So as the climate is changing, as we get into different weather patterns, we can answer some of those questions. Like if we get more hot, dry conditions, how important are some of these cropping systems? How are they able to withstand some of those changes in the weather?
Well, great stuff, Dave. I know he's always up to something, and we look forward to hearing from you and the new organization.
Oh, thanks, Bern. Looking forward to it.
When we come back on RealAg Radio, we're going to talk about soil health, and we're going to sort of discover what role biologicals can play. You're listening to RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
Co-op knows your community because we live here too. Our teams are your trusted partners with a range of expertise to help support your entire farm operation. And we're giving back. In the past 5 years, Co-op has invested over $1.1 billion in the prairies through building, upgrading, and expanding local facilities. And we've returned over $1.17 billion to Co-op members in the prairies. Co-op, we're all building something for the future. Here for your farm, here for your family. Learn more at coop.crs/farm.
When you see how fast Intruvix 2 herbicide from FMC smacks down narrow-leaved hawksbeard, volunteer canola, kochia, and those other problem weeds, you'll be saying, stronger and faster? Shut the front door. Apply it with glyphosate before planting cereals, and you'll enjoy cleaner fields faster while protecting your future glyphosate use. Cheese and crackers. Just how easy can you get? Intruvix 2 herbicide from FMC. Clean is good. See your local retailer.
FP Genetics relentlessly brings innovative new seed genetics to Canadian farms, ensuring growers, breeders, and farmers are supported and viable. Being a valued partner on your farm for decades, you can expect the continuous pursuit of the best genetics. Visit fpgenetics.ca to discover FP's strong portfolio of wheat, durum, barley, oats, peas, and rye, or contact your local FP seed dealer or territory manager to discuss your certified seed strategy specific to your region.
Co-op knows your community because we live here too. Our teams are your trusted partners with a range of expertise to help support your entire farm operation. Co-op, here for your farm, here for your family. Learn more at co-op.crs/farm. Joined right now by Leon Pratchler. He is the CEO of HumaTerra, based out of Birch Hills, Saskatchewan. Leon, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Shaun. Hey, great to be here.
Yeah, it's been cold recently, so hopefully you're keeping warm. Okay, now I want to dive into soil health here with you a little bit. Now, this is a word that it is very much of the popular variety. Everybody is talking about soil health and coming up with services and products that improve soil health and build soil health. From your perspective and your focus in this part of the industry, why do you think soil health all of a sudden becomes such a sexy topic?
Well, I think it's one of the last things out there that we haven't really explored a whole lot. As an industry and as farming in general, we control the things that we can control. And in the past, it's been tillage and weed control and fertility. We can control all that stuff. It's really difficult to manage or control or influence, frankly, soil health. And I think now we're getting some analytical tools that we can dive into it. Through DNA analysis, we can actually see a little bit, start to pull the curtain back and see what's happening underground. And we can see that we actually do have an impact on it, for the good and for the bad. So I think that's why it's becoming a popular thing now. Yeah, so it's interesting. I thought you were going to say it's something we haven't conquered yet, but you said we haven't even really talked about it yet. So do you think it was like previously kind of ignored, or we took it for granted? What do you think has changed? Yes, I do. I think it's been ignored and it's been taken for granted to a certain degree because, we certainly haven't conquered it. I mean, I often say if we're reading a 1,000-page book, we're closer to the introduction than we are to the page 1,000 in the term of soil health and soil microbiology. And really, it's part of analysis. We could do soil chemical analysis for decades. We're just starting to be able to do soil microbiological analysis at scale and cheap enough that people can actually start to see what's happening.
So a lot of times, listeners, we're talking about sustainability. A lot of listeners will say, well, what exactly does that word mean? Like, what is that? What is the definition of that? Okay, so to you, what is healthy soil? Because I think that there's a lot of variability to that based on where you are farming and your soil type. So how do we actually define healthy soil?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. And I think if you ask a bunch of different people, you're going to get a bunch of different answers. But we want a soil that has good water permeability. We want a soil that can grow a decent crop, that can grow and develop a good root system. And, soil health has diverse life in it outside of just soil microbes. We need worms and, there's a bunch of living matter that's in the soil, and soil health has all of it. So, there isn't one definition of soil health. And I've asked many different soil scientists and microbiologists what the definition is. I haven't got one yet, honestly, and certainly not a consistent one across the board. So I think it's, when we say we're starting at the beginning of understanding soil health, that's really what it is, because there is no definition for it. We're just trying to improve attributes like reducing compaction, increasing water infiltration rates, growing more crop with the same nutrients, or maybe with less nutrients, in fact. So, that's what soil health to me is. And we're trying to have a positive impact on that by influencing a diverse natural microbiome.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of more of like, instead of the comparison to some sort of benchmark, and benchmarking is important, but it's in some ways it's more about where has this, for this piece of land, where has this soil been from a quantitative standpoint with all those things that we measure soil health? Where is it now? And, where do I want to take it in the future? That seems to be kind of more, it's almost like that's how you develop that sort of self-definition as you're following the trends of those data points on some of the things you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we have to look back in time. And, We've been direct seeding no-till or minimum tillage practices in Western Canada for decades. And have we improved soil health? Absolutely. I mean, I think Western Canadian agriculture and Canadian agriculture are stewards of the land, but that doesn't mean that we can't get better. And I think that's really what the focus is going to be on now, is taking the work that we've done in the last 30 years, essentially, and improving upon that by adding a diverse microbiome into the soil. And we've seen results. We've seen that you can have a positive impact on land that is already pretty darn good. I think farmers should give themselves a pat on the back with how well they've done. But I think we can do a little better. And these new analytical tools and new concepts and new ideas are proving that there is still some room to go yet.
Okay, so diverse microbe. What the heck is that?
Well, there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of individual species of microbes that live in your soil. And, up until now, when we say we've largely ignored them, it's because we really didn't do much with them, short of putting single strains or maybe a couple of dual strain products in the ground, a bug in a jug type product, pea inoculants and that sort of thing. We really haven't done much in terms of influencing the soil microbiome. And so HumaTerra was started with a concept that, microbes control a lot, if not everything, essentially, from human gut health to animal gut health to soil health to plant health. Microbes are incredibly important. And if you have a diverse source of them, you can have some pretty incredible results. So, you can push out or reduce the influence of pathogenic microbes, for example, if you have a healthy biome. There's a lot of things that you can do. They influence root development. They increase root development so you can reduce compaction in soils. And so all of these things, including nutrient efficiency, lower pH tolerance, all of these things can be influenced and impacted by a healthy microbiome. And like I say, we're just starting to understand a little bit about that.
Yeah, certain soil types respond better to the addition of these microbes?
We're finding, certainly. I would say respond better quicker. Some soil types take a year or two of application to start to get some response on it, but absolutely, certain soil types, certain pHs, we can see a pretty good response in the first year in terms of yield. Root development is a hot topic. Everybody grows more roots, but the question is, who cares? Why? Why do you want more roots? Well, the answer is roots are important. If you haven't got a good root base underneath your crop, it's pretty tough to grow a good crop. And so we know that we can have a positive influence on root development, which has a positive influence on water infiltration, water use efficiency, and nutrient efficiency.
Where do you think this category is all headed? Like when you look in, 5, 10, 15 years out, what I guess is when you look back, how will you define success?
I don't think we're ever going to get success. We're never going to be done getting success. We're going to positively influence change, and that's never going to be finished. I think if you ever get to the point that you think you're done improving your soil, it's probably time to look elsewhere. There's always going to be improvements to make, and we can look in Europe. Okay, well, there's been a focus on waste recycling and waste reduction and livestock integration into land. Their land is quite healthy and growing very good crops. Can we get to that point? Maybe not. We have different climates, certainly different plant types, but I think there's absolutely room to improve. And we're never going to be finished, but we're certainly going to continue to improve.
Yeah. Well, hey, Leon, thanks a lot for joining us. I really appreciate it. All the best to you, and we'll chat again soon, okay?
Great. Thanks, Shaun.
That was Leon Pratchler, CEO of HumaTerra. It's going to be interesting to see where some of this area of product niche goes. And the important part is some of the trialing and ensuring that, based on the location of your farm and your operation, that you see the results that you anticipate or what some of your expectations are. It's very, very, if you think about some of the money that is being pushed into this area when it comes to biologicals and where we were 10 years ago versus where we are today, it is pretty phenomenal. It's a very, very interesting space. And we continue to see new entrants, new products, and new opportunities for this part of the sector, provided that the results are there. Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about farm safety and a very, very important topic when it comes to mental health as we get a little bit closer to seeding and planting time. You're listening to RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
Does your N stabilizer contain an active ingredient load high enough to be agronomically effective? If not, it could be costing you time and money. If you're putting down a nitrogen stabilizer, put your trust in Koch Agronomic Services. Solutions like Super U, Tribune, and Anvil. Each delivers high active ingredient concentrations that low-rate products just can't match. Compare how imitator products stack up to agronomically effective solutions at defendyourn.ca. Whether you're in a career within an organization, starting your own business, looking for your dream job, running your own farming operation, operating a company in ag or food, or want to hone your overall life skills, this conference is for you. Celebrating over 10 years of bringing women in ag together, join the Advancing Women Conference in Calgary on March 17th, 18th, and 19th. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register.
FP Genetics, innovative seed genetics for Canadian farmers. Contact your local FP seed dealer or territory manager to discuss your certified seed strategy specific to your region. Visit fpgenetics.ca to learn more. I'm going to say something here that won't be a surprise to you, but agriculture is demanding. It's very demanding. And as the new year gets underway and you prep your equipment and you get your people trained up and you get ready for all the tasks that have to happen, you got to ask yourself, are you physically and mentally ready for the season ahead? Until recently, there was a lack of knowledge on mental health in the sector, but now lots of work is underway and resources are available more so than ever to provide supports for farm operators and their workers regarding their mental health. Today on the Farm Safety Roundup, we're going to talk to Kristin Hoffman. She is a health and safety consultant with Workplace Safety and Prevention Services. When she's not assisting operators with their health and safety processes, Kristin's favorite place is home amidst the livestock, especially her horses on the family farm. Kristin, welcome to the Farm Safety Roundup.
Thanks, Shaun.
Okay, today we're going to have a really important discussion. I guess as a preamble, so when we talk about health, we need to talk about our whole health, and mental health is really a part of that whole equation. And it's much less obvious and more difficult to recognize than, say, if I get a scrape on my arm or something, it's like, hey, I'm hurt, right? Mental health is a little bit different. Now. I guess in knowing that, it's also, though, important, just because we can't see it, so to speak, we cannot ignore it.
Absolutely. Really, we have a few different parts that make up our overall health, and each of those are important. Physical, as you mentioned, is the most obvious. We can see it, and others can see it, which we believe makes it valid in comparison to some of those other parts, our mental health as one, social health as another. We don't see that on the outside of our body. It makes it a little more difficult to become valid to ourselves and others.
So I guess as we consider this topic, what do we consider to be normal? And how can we define normal? Because I could see how, maybe I feel today from a mental health perspective. Some people would say, like, I don't feel very good. Or some people are like, I feel great and way better than I do given today's circumstances. So what is normal and how do we define it?
Normal is going to have a different definition for every individual. It is different for each one of us. We each have different exposures in our lives that affect all of those different parts of our health. And if we consider our mental health as our emotional and psychological well-being, there will be different impacts or stressors in our experiences that are going to affect that level of normal. Mental health really is that state of well-being where each individual realizes their own potential and copes well, is able to do all of the things that they would do in a regular day. So, work productively, accomplish all of the items on their reasonable to-do list, and make good contribution in the spaces where they are present.
So before we dive into some of the tactics to manage some of the this. I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about talking about overall health as a three-legged stool. Talk about that.
That's such a great analogy, one of my favorites. If we imagine our overall health as that three-legged stool, so familiar in dairy operations and others within the sector, by design, a three-legged stool is sturdy, balanced, and supportive for the individual that is going to sit upon it. However, if any one of those legs were broken or unstable, then the design would be compromised, imbalanced, and in fact, those other two legs will have to work harder to maintain that individual that is sat upon it. So imagine our overall health, those three parts: mental health, physical health, and social health, as one of each of the legs on that three-legged stool. If any one of those is compromised, the other parts are going to have to work even harder. If my physical health is impacted, I have a broken leg, there will be some effect upon my mental health and social health as a result. Similarly, if there is some impact on my social health, and we've certainly experienced that over the last handful of years, if we couldn't get out to meet and greet with the people who are important in our lives, that weighs heavy on our mind. It has a huge impact on our mental health and even our physical health as a result.
No, I think it's important, though, that we recognize that it's not about removing all stress from your life. Like, all stress is not bad stress, right?
Absolutely. You know, stress is both good and bad. It's a part of every individual and our everyday life. We need a little bit of stress to be productive and bring excitement within our days. That said, too high of a level or too long of exposure to stress is going to have some negative impact upon us. And that level of stress often becomes related to some impact on both our mental and physical health. We hear about heart disease and other illnesses that come about as a result of either that high level or that long duration of exposure to stress. But we do need a little bit to kind of light that fire beneath us, bring that excitement within each of our days.
Yeah, and we know this is no secret. Agriculture is demanding. There's stressful times, like other industries. We're not unique in that sense. A lot of industries and businesses have stressful times. Now, there's some data though out of the University of Guelph where they surveyed 1,132 farmers, and they found that 45% of producers, almost half of the respondents, self-identified as in a highly stressful category. Now, does that surprise you?
When we consider the stressors that are a part of the culture in agriculture, no, in a lot of ways, that does not surprise me. There is so much out of the control of the farmer within the sector that is simply a part of agriculture. So, you have a really good run of weather, stress levels are decent. But we know that is not often the way the season will go. There is so much out of the control of the farmer, and that's a lot to manage, certainly, which increases our stress levels. And within some of that research as well, beyond that general response of stress level, individuals even reported anxiety experiences, depression experiences related to their work within the sector. Again, those everyday chores that we have to do within agriculture, some of those within our control, and then the others that are not, can make it really tough some of the days.
Is the fact that a lot of farmers are working alone an enabler there? Also, there's a lot of variables out of people's control, like you said, the weather, right?
Definitely. Weather is probably the most ideal example in that it is the worst example since it is out of our control. Working alone, the format of the work that we perform, the seasonality, when the sun shines, we make hay, is a literal statement in this sector as well. Financial pressures, typically we're running on somewhat thin lines within this sector as well when we consider the dollars and cents of it. And I'll say for my family and most of my exposure related to livestock, when you have responsibility to care for a living thing, and if there is illness, disease, or some impact to that living thing that you did not manage effectively, my goodness, it gives me a little bit of a shiver and pains my heart a little bit when we do consider some of the loss that occurs within the sector. Livestock as my example, but certainly even crop loss. We're nurturing, growing up to that point that we can share out of the sector. And if there's a loss, we take some real personal responsibility for that.
Now, you can't go to a ag conference now without there being some session about mental health. And that was not the case, I don't know, 5, for sure not 10 years ago. Has the stigma changed? Have we eroded that stigma around this topic, or is it still very, very prevalent?
Yeah, it is prevalent, but we have made improvements, certainly. We are talking about it here. It is on the schedule at most conferences. And that's really the first step, is breaking that silence that we have had on the topic of mental health, especially within agriculture. Reducing stigma takes time and work, and it takes every one of us to do our part. So letting each other know that, it's not an awkward or taboo topic. Mental health is a part of our health, whether farmer or any other career that we've decided. And individually, we can do a lot to break that stigma within our own circles, at home, work, and every of those efforts are going to eventually erode it right down to zero.
Okay, so let's get practical here. I would like to hear some, we'll put it, tips and tricks from you when it comes to ways or things that we can keep in mind, because the growing season is fast approaching, and of course for livestock producers, they're in it every day of the week. So what are some of the things we can do to manage some of the stressors out there for not only ourselves, other members of our family, and also people that are working in our operations?
So I'll encourage us to keep this general theme in mind, to be positive and productive in any of these tips. If my suggestion to take a walk at the start or the end of the day is the absolute last thing you want to do because you don't like going for a walk, that might not be the most positive for you. But within these suggestions, I have no doubt that we can take away one or a few that might help to support ourselves or share with others. And that will be the first one, activity. Whether it is as simple as taking that time and space within your schedule to go for a walk, start of day, end of day, even better if it can be at some point throughout the day, rather than taking the all-terrain vehicle or truck across the farmyard, as it hopefully would be a not too terrible weather day. Take the few steps, get some fresh air, take that walk across the yard. Rest is the next complementing point. Doing our best to ensure we have the time and space within our schedule for sleep. Set yourself up well for an effective sleep. Right pillow, right mattress, right lighting, all of that good stuff really does have an impact on how well we will rest. Taking some time throughout the day as well to relax or rest, whether it is to take a moment to have that cup of tea, call a family member or a supplier that you have a good relationship with, just to break up some of the tasks that you might have been working at for long hours to that point in the day. Nutrition is a really important point too, which is a tough one, but reflect on what we put in our body is going to help in what we can put out in every of our days as well. Be sure that you've got a trusted individual or circle that you can air it out with, get it off your chest every so often if there are some of those challenges that you really just need to put into words. And sometimes getting it out of your mouth and mind into the air around you is going to truly lift a weight off of you as well. So whether that's, again, family member, friend, or otherwise. I would encourage you as well to have some involvement off farm, whether that's the 4-H organization in your area, perhaps it is coaching a team for family members or otherwise in your local center. Give yourself something other than the farm tasks to be responsible for as well. I mentioned that personal responsibility we take as farmers. It's nice to divide some of that accountability into other spaces as well. One of the most difficult but most important is to acknowledge and accept what is out of your control as a farmer. Things like weather that we have mentioned. If it is not in your control, what can we do to respond to the current state and move on forward, rather than wishing, hoping, and losing sleep, literally, perhaps, over some of those aspects in life that really are outside of our control. We can't do a thing about it. And I'll mention as well a recent caption I read through socials was, get some natural light, which seems ironic within this sector. We're likely going to be outdoors as farmers, but if we happen to be out in the early morning, it's dark. Out in the late evening, it's dark. Be sure at some point during the day that we get a little bit of that vitamin D, that huge impact of natural light upon us, even if it is the few steps and minutes that we're taking on the walk from the barn to the house. Get out there.
Great stuff. So for practical, actionable tools and resources, including lists such as the daily chore, handling stress on the farm, understanding stress, its impact, and exploring coping methods, go to wsps.ca/farm safety. Kristin, awesome job. Great thoughts and insights. Really appreciate you joining us here on the Farm Safety Roundup. All the best to you.
Thanks, Shaun. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been awesome.
When we come back on RealAg Radio, we'll get to the top ag news stories of the day.
Through a growing storm of kochia, cleavers, chickweed, and more, there's a clear path. Introducing Oxbow, a versatile cereal broadleaf herbicide that gets the job done. Powered by Duplisan technology, Oxbow is your workhorse on resistant kochia and other tough weeds. With flexibility in timing, rates, and recropping options, your path is clear. Find your way on the path of least resistance at newfarm.ca/Oxbow.
What's next for your fields? At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground, we are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
The top ag news stories of the day here on RealAg Radio is brought to you by the new Oxbow cereal broadleaf herbicide from New Farm. Oxbow is powered by Duplisan technology that is a workhorse on resistant kochia and other tough weeds in wheat and barley. You can find out more by going to newfarm.ca. One thing we didn't talk about at the top of the show was the great football on the weekend. Fantastic. The games were great. How about those Lions? Definitely the underdog story, and they will face the 49ers next. That's going to be good. I couldn't imagine what those tickets are going to cost. I am sure that a lot of Lions fans have been craving for this moment for decades are going to make their way. They're going to flock to San Francisco. Okay, let's get on with the top ag news stories of the day here on this Monday. The Bank of Canada is expected to remain on pause for its first interest rate decision of the year, but analysts will be watching for hints about the timing of the future rate cuts as the economy stagnates. Now, what we've been seeing in the United States is a little bit of an expectation of a pushback in terms of some of those cuts. We talked about last week, there was a great opinion column in the Globe and Mail arguing that the Bank of Canada, although it has their own autonomy on decisions, may wait for the U.S. Fed to make the first cut before they do. Financial markets and Bay Street economists see the central bank holding its policy interest rate at 5% on Wednesday in what would be its fourth stand-pat decision since July. It will also publish a new set of projections for inflation and economic growth. So watch out for that on Wednesday. Dairy Farmers of Ontario held a special board meeting, on January 18th, 2024, to elect its new board executive. The meeting followed the DFO's 2024 annual general meeting, where Murray Shirk officially ended his final term as chair and retired as on the board for Region 8. So Mark Hamill, who's a board member for Region 11, was elected as the new chair. Panama Canal faces up to $700 million loss in 2024 due to low water levels. So in 2024, the Panama Canal is facing significant impacts due to low water levels, and these impacts are expected to result in financial losses. The Panama Canal Administrator has stated that the new cuts to service caused by the low water levels are projected to cost between $500 and $700 million. To address these low water levels, the Panama Canal will reduce the daily number of ships crossing. From a Russia perspective, staying on the shipping front, according to Russian sources, there is no prospect of reviving the Black Sea grain deal. The Kremlin said there was no prospect of reviving that deal and that alternative routes for shipping Ukrainian grain carried huge risks. These comments came after Ukraine's ambassador to Turkey said on Thursday there were certain negotiations were underway regarding the UN-brokered Black Sea grain export initiative. Because of all this increase in geopolitical issues, CEOs are increasing their planning for geopolitical scenarios. So this is from the Wall Street Journal. Business leaders in Davos told the Journal they are increasingly turning to scenario planning to safeguard supply chains and lessen the potential hit from unexpected geopolitical crises. Many CEOs and executives foresee an upbeat U.S. economy in 2024, but are concerned about China and Europe and the impact of unexpected global shocks on inflation. With supply chain disruptions caused by the pandemic worked through, CEOs are now grappling with impacts of Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. They're difficult when you are a global company, obviously, to get your head wrapped around how all these geopolitical issues, and there is a number of them, of course, as we talk about them here on the show, how they impact your ability to just do business on a daily basis. Of course, even back on the farm and the ranch, we see we're impacted as well. Less we can do about it, I guess, from that standpoint. It really very much is out of control, but it's a case of how do we react to some of these things that are happening. And that's one of the reasons we have the Frontlines podcast. We talked to Jacob Shapiro from Cognitive Investments, right, to try to shed some light on where things are and how you are actually impacted. Big political news over the weekend as the New Hampshire primary is tomorrow night. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis dropped out of the Republican presidential primary on Sunday, marking the end of his candidacy and setting up a two-way race with former President Donald Trump being the most formidable candidate, with former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley a distant second. DeSantis announced the decision in a social media video. He said, "It's clear to me that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance," adding he was endorsing Trump because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear or a repackaged form of warmed-over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. So throwing some serious shade back to Nikki Haley on his way out. Trump was actually asked over the weekend if Ron DeSantis could be his running mate. He didn't say no, but he did say it was quite doubtful. And it looks like it's a very clear path for former President Trump to be the Republican nominee. It would almost be a spectacular, uncalled going against all of the Vegas odds if Haley was to pull this out. It looks like Trump's going to be running for the presidency for sure. And as Jim Wiesmeyer and I have talked about, it'd be very fascinating to see what happens with the Democratic side. And of course, over the weekend, Trudeau met with his caucus, and his cabinet, and be meeting with the caucus as well this week, strategizing on how they're going to recover their own political future that really seems to be tarnished and in disrepair. But there's a lot of time between now and the election. If you have any feedback on today's show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or of course call the Real Ag feedback line 855-776-6147. Thanks everybody for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio. We'll be with the Northern Pulse Growers tomorrow from North Dakota. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for downloading this episode of the RealAg Radio podcast, brought to you by new Intruvix 2 herbicide from FMC. New Intruvix 2 herbicide for cereals delivers outstanding control of the toughest broadleaf weeds like volunteer canola, narrow-leaved hogsbeard, and kochia. See your local retailer for more information today.